One of the things that makes retro games so great is that they were able to provide us with so much fun, with tight technological restraints. As an example, the 8-bit NES could only process so many sprites on screen at one time, and if a game tried to exceed this limit, it would cause some sprites to flicker on and off, usually also causing the game to slow down. But it didn't make the games unplayable, and so good developers would often push their games to the edge of these limits. One thing that was highly limited in the era when games came on cartridges was memory. It was expensive, and you could only fit so much into one game. This limited the number of levels any single game could have, and most companies offset this by making their games extremely difficult, at least by modern standards, and also by giving the player a limited number of tries. You might only get 2 continues with 2 lives each, and after that, it's back to the beginning of the game with you. There's a paradox to the philosophy of retro games. They need to be hard enough to give the average player a sufficient challenge, or risk not providing enough playtime. On the other hand, if a game feels difficult in an unfair way, with traps or enemies that seem unavoidable regardless of skill, no one will want to play it. A game needed to be difficult, but in a way that made you want to keep trying. This is why I feel companies like Capcom and Konami are so respected by retro gamers. They were able to find this middle ground so consistently. I've been playing 8 and 16-bit games for almost my whole life, so of course I love challenging games. But I'm going to be honest with you. There's a fine line between games that make me want to get better, and games that make the blood vessels in my brain feel like they're gonna explode! And so, today, in this very special, personal episode of Ultra Healthy Video Game Nerd, I'm going to share with you my top 10 most frustrating moments in retro gaming. Just one quick disclaimer. Games that are just one big exercise in frustration from start to finish won't be on this list. Sorry, Holy Diver. Number 10. The enemies with flashlights in Terranigma. Terranigma is a revered action RPG, but the castle in China requires you to avoid guards holding flashlights, or you'll get thrown outside of the castle and have to start over. Sounds like a good idea that requires stealth. Well, there's just one problem. When a guard changes directions, the light from the flashlight doesn't slide across the ground like it would in real life. It instantly changes trajectory. That means any idea of getting past these guys with skill goes straight out the window. You just have to pray that they don't turn around the moment you choose to run past. And unless you're playing with a guide and know exactly where to go the first time, you'll be walking through the areas with these guys at least a few times. It is an utter waste of time and pissed me off so badly. Number 9. Floating platforms in Landstalker. While the overall development of the game was great, there was one detrimental downfall with Landstalker. It had no shadows. This presents a huge problem in an isometric game that expects you to make jumps on small platforms in 3D, because there's often no way to perceive depth in the screen. Eventually, the game presents you with super tight platforming sections over pits, and if you miss a jump and fall down, you'll have to climb up several floors of the dungeon again, just to be presented with the same near impossible feat. I absolutely refuse to believe that these sections were playtested. It's beyond ridiculous, and after a couple tries, I promptly quit the game for good. Number 8. The boss rush in Kendo Rage. Now, to be honest, Kendo Rage is not the most precise or deep platformer to begin with, but the atmosphere is playful enough to make it enjoyable. Up until the end of the game. After 6 very easy levels by 16-bit standards, the game then expects you to beat every single previous boss in the game, back to back, with new patterns added, mind you, and then fight the boss of the game with 3 patterns, all in one shot. It's like the programmers were almost finished and then realized, oh wait, this game is a pushover and completely forgettable. Let's make the player play through the entire thing again all in the last level. Dear game companies, yes, the last level should be the hardest one in the game. And no, it should not be 47 times harder than everything else in the game up until then. Number 7. Level 6 of Choco Soca Grand All. This is a really obscure 2D action adventure on the Japanese PlayStation 1, and at first glance, most people would think it was based on an anime series, although it was totally original. It isn't particularly long, and there are certainly issues with the control, but it's pretty manageable up until the last level. Stage 6 is a free-for-all of hyper-fast enemies, some of which literally materialize on top of you. The stage is a maze, and you'll definitely have to play it through a few times to memorize where the key cards are, and then figure out the correct path to the boss. And don't expect to beat the final boss in less than 10 tries. Thankfully, you do have unlimited continues. It's still a good game considering how few people know about it, but the last level is an exercise in pain. Number 6. The final standard level in Kitchen Panic. There was no way in the world I was going to do this list without including Kitchen Panic. There are countless difficult areas in Kitchen Panic, but it isn't because the control is bad or any one particular situation is unfair. The only reason the game becomes frustrating is because of the huge number of high-level moves you're expected to perform with so few lives. One particular section of the last level ramps it up to max and will drive all but the most battle-weary gamers completely insane. After making countless perfect super jumps over death spikes, you will then be expected to do a wall jump and release the button with just the perfect amount of momentum so that you don't bound too high to the next platform and miss the final pot of stew. If you accidentally go too high, you'll have to kill yourself off and go to the last checkpoint, and perform all those god-level jumps again. Thankfully, there is a 1-up right after this checkpoint, so you have as many tries as you need. If you don't have a heart attack after 10 minutes, that is. Number 5. The Dropoffs in Level 9 of Granada. Granada is a damn hard game to begin with, and you'll need to start with full lives on the last level, so most players will have no choice but to get a game over once and continue there. This level has 3 or 4 mini-bosses, and there is just no avoiding the rain of bullets in some parts. But much more problematic is the fact that it takes place on a track with unprotected edges you can fall off of. Falling into the abyss will take one whole life. How many life bars you have left is irrelevant. And anyone who's seen the final boss of Granada can tell you, if this happens, there's no point in even trying. Just kill yourself off and start over again. If you have another continue, that is, you only get 3 to begin with. I'm surprised Granada isn't the rarest game on Earth. You'd have to be a saint to experience this and not smash the cartridge to pieces. Number 4. The boss of World 5 in Drill Dozer. Some areas in this game require you to drill your way through pipes and match the power level of your drill to the number on the pipe. It's a great idea and requires very nimble fingers. But the 5th boss takes the idea to a level no rational person could have conjured up. To defeat this huge robot, you'll have to get him to hit himself in the head, exposing a hole that allows you to go inside of him where you'll need to destroy 3 power generators. And each of these generators is hidden behind a legion of these pipes. And you have a time limit. For the pipes with level 2 or 3, you'll often be going so fast that you won't be able to change your drill level in time, which knocks you back and wastes precious time. If you can't destroy a generator within the time limit, you'll get tossed outside of the robot and have to do it again. Even if you do destroy a generator, you'll get tossed outside and have to go back in for the next one. The path to the first generator? Not so bad. The second will definitely take a couple tries, but is doable. The third is an absolute nightmare. Don't forget, if you take enough damage and die, you'll have to start the entire thing over. I may have done permanent damage to my vocal cords playing this boss. Number 3. The Rafts in Roller Games. Now we're getting in deep. Stage 5 in roller games requires you to cross a river by jumping on moving rafts, while wearing roller skates! Just in case you've never played roller games, it does a surprisingly good job of recreating the momentum of picking up speed while skating. And if you can't guess, that doesn't lend itself well to jumping across small moving platforms. Crossing the moving rafts in roller games is about as difficult as it would be to do the same task in real life. You have to build just enough momentum to reach the raft, but not so much that you slide right off into the water. This must be done multiple times, and at times from one moving raft to another. It's one of the most unreasonable things I've ever seen in a game. You have unlimited continues, but whether your patience will hold or not is a totally different story. Number 2, the last level in Kickmaster. Oh good God, even remembering this makes me lightheaded. Kickmaster is a pretty awesome game. Well, it would be. It's a straightforward platformer, but you gain experience and acquire new kick techniques, as well as magic spells. That's an impressive feat for an 8-bit action game. But if you value your sanity, don't go anywhere near it. The 8th level of Kickmaster is longer than the previous ones, with several mid-bosses, and the first 2 aren't so bad. Once you get to the final stretch, it starts raining acid bubbles. These fall completely randomly and cannot be avoided. You're going to have to take some damage, deal with it. The bigger problem is that you're platforming vertically, and any space at the bottom of the screen becomes a death pit. You can't return downwards. And one of your techniques is a jump kick that just happens to be the one that's easiest to do on accident. Death is just an everyday occurrence in this world. And if by some godforsaken chance you can get past the last mid-boss, the final boss of Kickmaster is, without a doubt, the cheapest enemy in video game history. The hit detection is skewed in the boss's favor on a legendary scale. There is only one way to beat this boss, and that's by using the earthquake magic that freezes him for a couple seconds. I have literally been standing next to the boss after freezing him, kicked and not connected, moved 1 pixel forward only to take damage and get knocked backwards. There is no way in the world that any person played this level for even 1 second before it went to print. No developers, no debuggers, no playtesters. I proclaim here, today, that I will perform oral sex on any person who can beat the boss of Kickmaster without using magic. Good luck! And yet, there is one moment in gaming that is so maddening, so rage-inducing that it actually beats out Kickmaster. Number 1 is the despicable sandboarding section in Sonic Adventure for the Dreamcast. When I decided I would try to get all the emblems in Sonic Adventure, I never could have imagined the world of trouble waiting for me. Getting the 3rd emblem in some of Sonic's levels is frustrating indeed, but at least it's also fun. But getting the 3rd emblem on the sandboarding level literally caused me to pray for the death of the programmers. Yes, I've got problems, but they're justified. This level basically has you snowboarding, except obviously you're on sand. There are checkpoints that you have to pass through, and if you go through the next checkpoint without too much time passing since the previous one, you'll build a combo that racks up points. To meet the point requirement for the 3rd emblem, you'll have to do a perfect run and get through each checkpoint without the combo starting over. There are multiple pathways, but whichever path you choose, the requirement is the same. So why is this such a pain? Try to imagine this. Instead of a mountain of sand, it's like a thin layer of sand has been poured over a rugged mountainside. You get tossed all over the place. Any random little bump can completely screw up your trajectory. You can't just face the direction you want to go, you have to adjust for every single little nook and cranny in the ground. And if you hit a hard bump, you can easily just come to a complete stop. This stupid little downhill race probably took me over an hour. I screamed bloody murder the whole time and traumatized my cat. I'm sure I took time off of my lifespan. Whoever made this level? F*** you in the ass with a big black plastic dildo. So, there you have it. That was the most PG video I'm capable of making about frustrating moments in gaming. If you had any other games that drove you completely insane, please tell me about them in the comments, and I hope to see you in the next video.